Hey, how's it going? It's Sam Frost back here with another marketing video. Now, today, what I want to talk about is I guess, a trend I've noticed more and more in marketing, especially the digital marketing space, and that's businesses not really wanting to invest in branding or advertising. So, what I mean by this is everyone is hooked on this idea now of always being able to run a distinct campaign for which you can track, the dollars spent back to the dollars you've got out of that in terms of leads or sales, and you can optimize for always juicing more out of that individual campaign. And I think that's great. It's got businesses and business owners into this mindset of being more efficient with their spending. But on the flip side of the coin, I think it's creating some problems for businesses, especially ones with more complex sales cycles. So maybe you got quite a process between first getting someone in the door and turning them into a lead and then turning them into a sale. If you're selling, via e-commerce, for example, it's much easier to say, hey, this Facebook ad I set up yesterday has spent $50 and it's generated $350 in sales, and I'm running a 50% profit margin, so my profit is X. But if you're selling a complex product or solution where maybe people are checking for weeks, months, even different solutions, they could look at different providers. Maybe you're selling something a little bit more esoteric where there's an existing problem, but your solution is a sort of novel one, so you solve a problem that people know exists, but they didn't know the solution existed. You might not be able to actually market in quite the same way. So you may be able to run some campaigns on different platforms like Google Ads or Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads, where you can definitely see that dollar you spent turned into $10 worth of inquiries, which turned into $100 worth of sales. But also don't neglect the importance of branding yourself and sort of generally advertising in your industry, your target area, your target demographic. There's still immense value in that, in my opinion. If there was no value in it, why would big businesses with big marketing budgets still put effort, still put time, and still put money into general branding and advertising exercises? No one would advertise on the radio or on the back of buses or on billboards or on TV or in magazines or in newspapers or anything like that if they couldn't see any value in it. Ultimately, it may be that you can't so easily tie the value or sort of the return back to the spend, but you're still able to see that you've been increasing your activity, and off the back of that, your traffic and your leads and your sales have been increasing. So do bear that in mind. There are things out there that I think are being neglected too much, like finding advertising opportunities and really targeted trade publications, or going to expos and conferences, all these kinds of things that it may not be quite so easy to immediately tie back the return to the spend. But ultimately, if you're not having these in your arsenal, then you're losing out on quite a bit of value. You're probably leaving quite a bit of money on the table. So I guess my challenge or my discussion point here is really think about the type of business you've got. If you've got a business that has a sort of complex sales cycle, you're making a complex sale, don't just assume that you're going to be able to run e-commerce style campaigns on Facebook ads or Google ads and tie every dollar you spend back to every dollar in revenue that's coming through the business. Obviously, in an ideal world, that would be great, but you do need to think about branding and advertising as well, because ultimately what you want is people to come to you directly. You want them to bypass you. I want people to come to me because they want digital marketing advice, not because they've Googled, digital marketing consultant Christchurch and found me. Obviously that's great, but the preference is always people to come to you via that branded channel, because they're much more likely to make the purchase from you in the first place. So have a think about that, and just look at premium luxury brands. Look at like your Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Omega watches and all those kinds of things. Can they necessarily tie back every single dollar in ad spend they've made to the exact watches that were sold, or the exact serial number of car that was sold? Probably not. Obviously if they can, then I'm glad to be proven wrong. But ultimately, these businesses that are selling, I guess, almost more of a lifestyle than anything else, selling really quite complex sales in some respects, they do a really good job, in my opinion, of branding themselves and advertising in the right spaces to the right demographics. So look, this is not a criticism of the modern style of digital marketing. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's empowered a lot of business owners to sort of do more than they would have been able to do in the past. but do not neglect the old-fashioned, old-fashioned in inverted commas, I should say, ways of advertising and marketing, because ultimately I think they still have a lot of value. So it's about finding the right mix, right balance between the two. If you can get that right, then I think you will be a lot more successful. So yeah, hopefully you find that helpful. I'd really be keen to hear your feedback. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.